Either get a job or get out. I'm sick of supporting a woman like you. My husband's words hit a nerve, and something inside me snapped. Why should I put up with someone like this? A man who belittles others to bask in his own superiority. I'm better off without a man like this. My name is Melissa. I'm 36 and I balance work with homemaking. I'm a freelance illustrator working from home. I've always loved art and went to art college, and after graduating, I worked at a design company. When I turned 30, I took the plunge and went independent. I wanted to express myself in the way I like, doing what I love. Back then, I was single and thought I could live life on my own terms. But then I met my husband Daniel through a mutual friend, and we clicked. We decided to get married smoothly and registered a year later. Daniel's company has branches all over the country, and he travels a lot for his job as a salesman. Because he works long hours, he wanted me to be a housewife, so I temporarily paused my illustrator career. Sure, he works late and travels, so someone has to manage the home. I thought we should support each other as a married couple, so I didn't mind quitting my job. I figured I could resume my art career later while continuing my studies in the meantime. I think so. I loved him, and he loved me. We trusted each other, so there was nothing to complain about. But then, life threw us a curveball. Daniel got promoted to head a new sales office, meaning no more transfers for a while. It was what is commonly known as a promotion. Being in charge meant that I would not be transferred for a while, and we could settle down in that city. Now we could finally settle in one place. We had been moving a lot and were exhausted from adapting to new places every year or so. But now we could finally settle down in one town, and we were both happy about it. Before, I was so busy supporting my husband that I couldn't think of anything else. But I thought things would be different from now on. Going back to work seemed within reach. But it didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. My husband was still swamped with work, handling the transition and launching new branches. Then another issue came up. The cost of rent in our new city was higher than we expected. We could get by on my husband's salary, but just barely. And his company didn't offer housing assistance, so we had to cover it all ourselves. We wanted to save for the future, but his salary was barely covering living expenses. I considered dipping into our savings if needed, but it didn't feel secure. So I asked my husband, would it be okay if I worked too, provided I managed the house well? He looked hesitant and finally said, fine, but make sure you take care of the home. His choice of words felt off, but I've always supported him as a housewife. I thought he must also feel uneasy about the lifestyle changes. I decided not to dwell on it. I finally have a job I like. I was excited to go back to work after all these years. But my husband started to change, and not for the better. What's the deal with this dinner? It's roast chicken, steamed vegetables, chowder, and fruit. This food sucks. Why are you cutting corners when you're home all day? He started to nitpick the meals I prepared, something he never did before. This food is like hospital meals. It's not building up any strength. That's not true. I found some deals on ingredients, so I made a main dish and a side you like. Hearing that, he shouted, what? Are you saying my salary is too low? I felt stunned by his sudden outburst. Why was he twisting my words like that? His angers left me speechless. Do you have any idea how hard I work to support you? Just when I get promoted and things are looking up. Don't mess it up by doing something unnecessary. I wanted to argue back, to catch my breath and think before speaking, but I stopped myself. My husband must be going through a hard time right now. He's swamped with the stress of being the one in charge and the responsibility to protect our family. I'm sorry, I apologize. He must just be tired, I convinced myself. Still, his domineering attitude continued. Hey, are you slacking on cleaning the bathroom? Where's the shirt I was gonna wear today? At least shine my shoes. He never acted like this before we moved. What happened to him? It's like he became a different person, constantly yelling and shouting. Day by day, my distrust for him grew. Balancing housework and my job was harder than I thought. I wanted to sneak in work between house chores, but if I tried to make everything perfect to his standards, housework alone would consume my day. If I tried to meet the deadlines set by my clients, the spare moments I had for chores were nowhere near enough. I've also started working, can't you help a bit with the chores? I suggested, but he retorted, It's because you're busy with your worthless job that the housework is suffering. Just quit. Don't get cocky just because you work from home. You're not even making much. And you, acting so high and mighty even though you're just a housewife. Being disparaged as just a housewife became his go-to insult. According to him, I was still a housewife, even if I was working. What twisted logic. I didn't get it. I wasn't making much, that's true. But that's because he kept disrupting me, making it impossible to increase my workload. Fed up, I minimized the chores I did for him and started prioritizing my work. And then he started looking even more visibly displeased. The rift between us continued to grow. Then one day, while cleaning the room, I stumbled upon his pay stub. So careless to leave it lying around, the pay stub was carelessly placed on the desk. I was somewhat curious and picked it up. I knew his salary, of course, but I had never seen the pay stub before. Curiosity got the best of me, and I was shocked when I looked inside. When I checked the amount on the pay stub, it was about half of what I'd been told before. What's going on? I receive monthly living expenses and rent from my husband, and the rest is his pocket money. Where is my husband getting the missing amount from? Wasn't he supposed to have gotten a promotion? How can his salary drop like this? Since when? I searched for other statements, but couldn't find any pay stubs from before his promotion. What's really happening here? At that moment, my vague distrust towards my husband turned into certainty. We can't live on this amount. What is he thinking? Why did he keep this so critical from me? Why didn't he tell me his salary had gone down? Just as I was gathering the pay stubs to confront him, the phone rang. It was from my husband's uncle, whom I'd only met a few times. Uncle, long time no see. What's up? Well, it's awkward to bring it up, but you see, I've lent him some money. It's been a while, and I'm wondering when I'll get it back. I'm in a bind over here. What? He owes you money? Then it clicked. My husband had been filling in the gap in his salary with loans from his uncle. Turns out, we're talking in the tens of thousands. I sincerely apologized to his uncle and promised to repay him. Even though I felt terrible, the uncle didn't blame us and kindly said, "Just pay it back when you can." I've reached my limit. That night, I didn't mention the debts or the pay stubs, but my anger towards my husband slowly and steadily rose. He's belittled me for being a housewife, exploited me around the house, and even interfered with my work. That night was no different. He continued to berate me. When will you ever get good at household chores? The food's terrible. The entryway's a mess. What have you been doing at home? Another useless job, I bet. Being a housewife must be easy. Doesn't he realize his words contradict themselves? I cook and clean just like anyone else. If you're not happy, then why don't you do it? You've been coming home on time lately. You can handle it. When I pushed back, my husband slammed his fist on the table. You! When did you become such a mouthy woman? Don't get carried away, you waste of money! Do you even know who's providing for you? I didn't back down. What's so mouthy about standing up for myself? I'm doing my part. What about you? I glared at him. I don't have to put up with this man anymore. Whatever he says, I don't care anymore. I spoke my mind. He didn't back down either. You pretend to be working around the house, but never actually do. Start earning, then talk. I thought the same could be said for him, but I remained silent. Should have never married you. What a money pit you've turned out to be. You keep saying, we don't have money, so why don't you earn some? If you're not going to work, get out. I'm tired of supporting a woman like you. He looked at me triumphantly. It sent a shiver down my spine. He must have thought I'd apologize, but I was ready. Fine, I'll leave. I grabbed my already packed bags and started to head out. You can't do anything on your own anyway. Why do you think that? I gave him a cold look. By the way, I'm leaving this. I've already filled it out. I slapped the divorce papers I got from the city hall onto the table. He must have never expected I'd leave, let alone file for divorce. He was speechless, standing still. Well, that settles it. Make sure you fill it out and send it soon. I left our home and headed to my parents, where I had already informed them of the situation. They welcomed me warmly. My husband's sudden change of attitude, the income being way less than he claimed, and the fact he was in debt? Hearing this, my parents urged me to divorce him immediately. I intended to, of course. But would he even fill out those divorce papers? Dad said he'd introduce me to a lawyer if I couldn't get a divorce. I thanked him for his reassuring words, hoping that I could end my marriage as soon as possible. A week after I left home, my husband showed up at my parents' house. "Did you fill out the divorce papers?" "Sorry, I asked if you filled them out." "Please, can you reconsider the divorce?" I was a bit taken aback. He didn't seem like the arrogant man I knew. Though my parents looked at him skeptically, they agreed we should at least talk, so they invited him in. Turns out I never got promoted. His promotion was a complete lie. He was actually reassigned to a subsidiary, a kind of demotion, and that's why his salary decreased. It seems he's never been particularly good at his job. I had sensed he wasn't too competent, but I had no idea it was this bad. Apparently, his transfers and job changes had always been a result of his inability to work well, making him the office's hot potato. Now he was stuck in an insignificant department in the subsidiary, a place from which promotions were virtually impossible, and where people often got pushed out. My husband always had high pride. I guess that's why he couldn't tell me the truth and pretended to get a promotion. After losing his standing at work, he started to inflate his ego at home, believing he was superior because he was providing for a housewife like you. He would belittle me and sabotage my work just to sustain his pride. I took your absence to realize that you were earning quite a bit. Before leaving, I deliberately left a copy of my bank statement in his room. Though I earned less than he did, it was still a substantial amount to support our living. I realized I need you. I can't even afford the rent on my own. I think we can make it work if we combine our strengths again. So let's give it another try. I want to spend my life with you. I won't make you suffer anymore. Tears formed in his eyes. Feeling completely indifferent, I brushed him off. If you can't afford the rent, then just move. You can find cheaper places if you're alone. And what about your uncle's debt? You have to pay it back, right? When I said that, his eyes widened. How did you know? He was still trying to hide his debts and start over. You just can't reason with some people. I get that you were making ends meet by borrowing from your uncle, but if we're talking about starting over, shouldn't you lay all the cards on the table? My dad chimed in after I spoke. You've been so dishonest. I can't imagine letting you have custody of our daughter anymore. What were you planning to do about the debt without telling her? My husband didn't say a word at my dad's comment. I continued, pressing the issue. If you won't agree to the divorce, I'll hire a lawyer. Your abusive comments are clearly grounds for a divorce, and I have evidence, so brace yourself. My husband seemed to give in and pulled out the divorce papers from his bag. I've really messed up, beyond repair. It's too late now. We're strangers. I took the divorce papers from my husband. We hardly had any shared assets. Just a small amount of savings that we split. We moved out of the apartment we had lived in as a couple, and I heard he quit his job. Apparently, the rumor of our divorce spread at his already uncomfortable workplace, making it even more unbearable for him. He said he's been paying back his debt to his uncle slowly, while working part-time. After the divorce, he reached out several times. I want to start over with you. Nothing's been going well since we split. I realized you were the only one on my side. Can we? I got creeped out by his constant pleas for reconciliation and changed my phone number. If he had just put his pride aside and been honest, maybe we could have understood each other as a couple. There's no way I'm forgiving his abusive behavior, and the love has long since faded. I silently walked away from him. Afterward, I resumed my career as an illustrator in earnest. I'm busy, but every day is so fulfilling. A bright future waits for the newly free me. Right now, my job feels like my lover. Who would have thought that that moment of courage and decision would change my life so much? It's my one and only life. I'll live each day to the fullest, with no regrets. I looked away from my computer screen and gazed out the window, thinking just that.